Today on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, we're pleased to be joined by Iowa Senator Joni Ernst, as we have several farm-related topics we're going to be discussing today. First, Senator, thanks for coming on our network, and how you been doing?
Oh, very good. I tell you, every day is a new challenge and a new opportunity, I guess, here in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Before we dive into what's going on in the ag sector, you might catch our listeners up to speed. What's new with you and how things are going for you back home?
Well, they are going quite well. Thank you. Of course, we have a number of issues that are coming up through our committees. I sit on 4 committees that are important to Iowans. So small business, agriculture, armed services, of course, is a very large one, and environment and public works. So there is a lot of things going on, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's the cattle markets, you name it. We're trying to address it all.
Well, Senator, farmers are really talking right now about the potential rollback of the Navigable Waters Protection Rule. This was something that EPA announced recently that the administration's considering. Now, Senator, this came only weeks after EPA Administrator Michael Regan had pledged to leave the subject alone and actually had kind of criticized the Obama-era WOTUS rule a little bit. Can you shine some light on this subject for our farmer listeners? This is something that's getting a lot of attention here in Iowa.
The Obama era Waters of the U.S. rule was a big government overreach. And I heard that from our farmers and ranchers across the state of Iowa. And so I actually spearheaded an effort in my first year in the United States Senate to roll back those Obama era rules. It was supported bipartisan, passed through Congress, but of course, President Obama vetoed my bill. But what we have seen then through the next administration, through the Trump administration, was an effort through rulemaking to go to navigable waters. And what it did was define what the waters of the U.S. are, but more importantly to our farmers and ranchers, what are not waters of the United States. And Michael Regan, as the administrator of the EPA, now has made that move to roll back the Trump era rules. And this is, as I've described it, a gut punch to our farmers and ranchers. We need some sort of stability out there. We need to know and understand what waters are regulated by the federal government, what are not. And again, I think unfortunately we're heading right back into the Obama era where the federal government is going to try and control every bit of land and water that they can.
So, Senator, what would a potential return to WOTUS mean for Iowa farmers?
It means a heavier burden on the shoulders of our farmers and ranchers. What I could foresee is that permitting processes would be slowed down. And certainly if a farmer is engaged in just daily activities, maybe they're putting up a new fence row, that potentially could fall under federal government jurisdiction. If they are disturbing the land and digging fence hole posts, something so simple and common sense would then be regulated by the federal government. We have seen the home builders in the past. They did a study and they found that just to build a single family dwelling, it would take an additional 2 years of federal permitting. And our economy can't support that type of action.
So while this whole situation kind of continues to unfold, what would be your message to Iowa farmers at this time on this subject?
Well, to hold steady, but to reach out, let your members of Congress know. There are many of us very, very active in this space in the state of Iowa. So please be reaching out, sharing your stories with us. If you know of others in other states, have them reach out to their members of Congress. It is imperative that we speak with one voice and pushing back against the administration. We want our stakeholders to be heard, and it helps us if we can share your stories.
You have an Iowan right now leading USDA and Tom Vilsack, and you and Senator Grassley sent Mr. Vilsack a letter this week pressing him on this potential rollback of the Navigable Waters Protection Rule. Senator, any response on that letter yet from Secretary Vilsack?
Not yet. And this is extremely disappointing as well. We want Secretary Vilsack to remember his roots, and those roots are very deep in Iowa. So we have not only queried him on the waters of the U.S., but we've also asked him to be a defender of the renewable fuel standard, things that are very important to Iowans. We have not received a response yet, and we'll make certain that we update you when we receive that response.
Appreciate that. Now, I understand you introduced some legislation this week called the Prove It Act. What's this legislation all about, Senator?
Well, certainly when any rules or regulation is being presented through Congress or through these federal agencies, what we want to make sure is that our small businesses, which many of our farmers and ranchers are small businesses, is making sure that they are not overburdened or impacted too heavily by these proposed rules or regulations. So we are asking that an independent agency do a study and basically prove it that these small businesses won't be impacted by a heavy-handed federal guideline or law.
Lastly, Senator Ernst, beef producers in the state remain concerned about the price disparity between live cattle and box beef. What are you hearing on this issue right now? And is this something you've been monitoring closely?
It is, and this is something that comes up every stop that we make across the state of Iowa, whether it's Senator Grassley on his 99 county tour, whether I'm out on my 99 county tour. We are hearing from those cattle producers about the disparity in prices between, what they are getting per head and then the final produced cost of beef. And so we have written a letter to DOJ, and we're asking them to look into this issue. We need more transparency, obviously. And good news is that in the Ag Committee here in the United States Senate, we now have agreed to hold a hearing on the price disparity. So I do hope we'll bring more information to light. And once we have that information, perhaps then we can figure out a solution.
Now, I know Senator Grassley introduced the 5014 legislation. Senator Fisher in Nebraska had the Cattle Market Transparency Act of 2021. Has there been any updates on those two pieces of legislation in the Senate?
Yeah, I am co-sponsors of both of those pieces of legislation, and we really want to see them move forward. But they won't be taken up in committee until we actually do have a hearing on the issue. So I am hopeful that we continue to get sponsors on these bills, and that after hearing more from our cattle producers, that we will get those sponsors and we'll be able to move forward.
Well, Senator, thanks so much for coming on our program today. It was nice to catch up with you, kind of face to face over Zoom. So hopefully we can do it again down the line.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.